So welcome to this week's episode of Leaders on a Mission, where I'm joined by inspiring leaders driven by the impact of creating a healthy and sustainable world. And today's episode, I'm joined by JF Dechant, CEO of Elicit Plant, an AgTech startup using a real novel innovation to help crops become more resistant to water stress, helping farmers to help feed the world's growing population. And JF, thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Very happy to join your podcast, and thank you for inviting me to this podcast.
Absolute pleasure. And look, it's interesting with you, JF. You know, you're not from the agriculture industry. You're more of an entrepreneur. I kind of just wanted to take it kind of back, you know, to maybe a little bit more in the earlier days, really. I wanted to understand what some of those key forces were, those key influences on you as you were kind of growing up.
Yeah, interesting question. So, because I graduated as an engineering school like 30 years ago. And at that time, I decided to deep dive a little bit more on computer science, because I found that the initial training was a little bit shallow. And so I started as a software engineer, then network architect, project manager, did some marketing, even sales, business development, mostly with American companies and for global projects. So I started to have this global view very early in my career. And one day, it was in the 2000 or 2001, I don't remember exactly. I was managing director of a BU, and I was fired, I would say, without any kind of reasons. So I took my boxes, went back to home, and my wife said to me, "Hey, what do you do?" I say, "I've been fired." She did not believe me. So then I started to think what I want to do as in my career. And I made this decision to never make a resume again and to work for myself. And this is the way that I didn't choose somewhere. I've been forced to choose a way which is potentially something which suit me well, because for the past 20 years, I've been an entrepreneur. I started different startups in different activities, and some obviously with lack of success, but some pretty successful. One of them, the first one, by the way, is still in business, doing hundreds of millions of euros with operating on the same name, and so it's kind of pleasant to see this kind of companies.
Yeah,
yeah.
I was just going to say, JF. So basically, that moment, literally, when you got sacked from your job, that was a real instrumental kind of moment in you almost deciding what the next 20 years of your career was going to look like, basically.
Yeah, even more than 20 years. My whole career, I say, no, I will always work in the future for myself or a group of people, but not be acted upon by someone with decision I cannot understand. So
tell me though, JF, would you have got to that point if you would not have been sacked? You know, if you take it back, you're working at that company, you're going down the road, you know, how different would life have been, do you think?
Yeah, it was interesting because I remember one of my manager told me, "Hey, you know, GF, you are a number one guy. You will never be in big organization. You are a number one guy. You want to drive business, and one day it will happen." So, but at that time, I didn't have this feeling because I was engaged in my company, and it was working well. It was growing. It was very intense. So it offers me the opportunity to step back and to think what I really want to do. And then I decided to move forward this direction.
Yeah, got it. So how many companies have you kind of led and been kind of founder or CEO then prior to Elicit?
Oof. It's strange, but I did not count really. I think five. I think
Five.
but some of them are spin-off of the first, and so. But yeah, five companies including a found.
Yeah. Okay.
So I try. I like to go in new territory, unknown territory with challenges. I like this. I like the technology. I like the impact, and I like the globalization of the things. To think global. So I like this, and so this is why I have this very specific journey, and for instance, with one company, after fundraising, the VC told me, "Hey, we have a company. It's not in a very good shape, but you think it would work well with your company. You should buy them." And then we bought this company. This company was mostly in the US, so I said, "Okay, let's move to the US." So I brought my family to USA, and it was a new experience. And I spent 8 years in California, in Silicon Valley. And then I sold these companies, launched new companies over there in Silicon Valley. And then one day, because I think it was mostly in the cybersecurity, one day I started to feel a little bit bored by this business, because when I started cybersecurity in the early 2000, it was a very niche market, very small, but it became very huge, big, with big companies. So I started to be bored, and I wanted to kind of jump in a new bus. So and so I decided to move back to France with my family. And a couple of years after, I found Elicit Plant, and it was like a fresh air. It was a completely new project, something I didn't know at all, but with a great impact on the planet. And this is something that was driving my way of thinking. Now I want to work for something that makes really sense for the planet.
Yeah. So tell me, JF, did you have that mission? Was it a case you found Elicit, you realized what it did, and you saw the impact? Or did you have this kind of yearning for the mission in you beforehand?
No, to be honest, I don't have too much this mission within me.
Yeah.
It was more like an opportunity.
Yeah.
Wow, great! It's a perfect project. So a little bit, the way I started as an entrepreneur, an opportunity, and then okay, let's go, let's move forward, let's engage, and I learned a lot from my stay in the Silicon Valley, how to launch this kind of business. And this is, I think, one of the reasons, obviously not the only one, of the success of the company, because I learned a lot from my previous experience as a CEO. I did a lot of mistakes, and also to have the experience in North America, in Europe, helped me a lot to find the right way in this, with this company.
Yeah. Just two questions for you on that is, so if you think about life before Elicit and life after Elicit, so with Elicit, when you founded or co-founded Elicit, what you were thinking all your previous experience, if you had to distill it into something, the top 2 or 3 things that you think that you were able to bring with you and all that world experience into this new position, what do you think they would be?
Wow, tough question. I think the first thing as the CEO is like you are easily isolated. Your employees on one side and all the stakeholders on the other side, outside stakeholders on the other side. So I think I didn't want to be isolated, and it was all even more key as I have no experience in the AgTech industry. So this is one of the maybe the main takeaway from my previous career, to make sure in order to make the right decision, to not be isolated. And then potentially I think is really think big at the very beginning. When you are starting a company, a startup, you want to think big, but you are a little bit afraid. When you have done things, then you know yet that you can have this dream. So, and the dream is somewhere close to the vision. So if you are impulsing this dream, this vision, you are able to take with you everybody, I would say, not only the employees, everybody in this journey. I think it's something strong too, that I learned from this experience. And last but not least, I think in all companies I've founded, I have at some point a big adversity to overcome, always. And sometimes, by the way, I decided to just walk away from the company, from the project, because the adversity was too big. So, and we had some adversity at the beginning of the project with Elicit Plant that we have been able to overcome through this vision, and the way that, okay, it's an obstacle, but it's normal.
Yeah, no, great. Thank you so much for sharing. That's really that's fascinating. And I would imagine your time in Silicon Valley probably helped you dream a bit bigger, right? Because it's infectious over there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true that Silicon Valley brought me this big vision. Be ambitious, be extremely focused, but very ambitious. So it's true that it's and always positive about your project, which is a little bit different from Europe. But what is very interesting is that I think I'm combining this dream of thinking big, and the way that we are doing business, particularly in France, to be very pragmatical and very resilient. So when you combine the two, it's a great forces, because you have the big vision, but you are strong on your feet. Where somewhere in Silicon Valley, it's a little bit cloudy, I would say.
Yeah.
It's so you are linked to your very high level vision, but really with the feet on the ground. And this is where we built Elicit Plant company.
Yeah, no, got it. So tell me, is AgTech now in 2022 the same in terms of cybersecurity was in 2002 in terms of growth and opportunity, maybe, right?
Completely. Completely. It's interesting you asked me this question, because a couple of weeks ago I was in a event show in Valencia on AgTech, and I realized it remember me that cybersecurity 20 years ago, like plenty of companies, plenty of project, a lot of energy, but not a lot of very big fish. I mean, the big fish are not in the AgTech. This is the big chemicals company. So very, very similar situation. I love it.
Yeah, no, great, absolutely. So tell me, where did you find, so essentially with Elicit, right? You've got a couple of founders, co-founders, there's three of you, right? Where did you find those guys? Did you know them before? And how did it all come together?
No, not really. It's really by serendipity. So Olivier found initially the innovation in a cosmetic labs. He figured out that it would be great for an agriculture application because phytosterols are coming from plants, and there are some literature, scientific literature about it. So he worked initially before the inception of the company to validate these points. And then at some point he was looking for, I would say, a hands-on business angel and partner. So we decided to merge our force, and the idea of Olivier was also to build the labs very close to the farmer, even in a farm, in order to ease the adoption of a disruptive technology. So very early in that process, we found Emmerich, who is a scientific, but also he owns a large farm in the southwest of France with old barns. And we started to work, the three of us, and to build the labs and the company within the farm, which is completely opposite to most of the AgTech company, where they start with the labs and then they try to move to the field. In fact, we started directly to the field. The first trials we did were on the field, in the fields, in Emmerich farms, with in year one, with amazing results. So this is the very original funding company, which the way we found the company, and still a little bit the case in our construction, because right now, after 5 years, we already have a couple of marketing authorization in 3 countries, which is quite fast. And with a very pragmatic approach, product development, and a great product with results on yield gains.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love that. Very different approach. And but tell me then a little bit, in terms of Elicit and Elicit Plant, just explain a little bit more about the problems, the company solve.
Yeah. So agriculture is facing major changes. Obviously, there is a climate change, which is impactful on the crops, with less water, some issue with water stress. But also, it depends on the countries, but particularly in Europe, more regulatory constraints on pesticide and fungicide and all the chemicals, less chemicals available to do the crop protections. And last but not least, and even beyond the Ukraine war, definitely an issue with the cost of the inputs, the fertilizers, all the inputs which growing up. So the farmers, and all of these changes happen very fast. So it creating some risk and opportunities. On the other hand, Unfortunately, the commodities are increasing too very, very fast. So it's really a great opportunity for farmers. So in that big picture, we are focusing on the water stress 10, which is a key one, because from the very beginning of the agriculture, one thing that the farmers have never been able to control is the rain, the water. And water is key for yield, obviously. So in these trials we noticed that the phytosterols products have great impact in terms of yield and other kind of side effect, like staggering effect on corn, and more gloves on soybean and stuff like this. So I think the way we worked is to develop very premium product with simple marketing message. So the product is a premium product with one claim, is a fight water stress, one crop, either soybean, corn, and now sunflower, and one application, 1 liter per hectare, and great results. So it's a preventive treatment that the farmers are spraying with their existing machinery sprayers, so they don't need to change something, to buy something. It's a very common itinerary, and then it has an effect up to the end of the crops at the harvest. So we are pioneering in this area of phytosterols, well known by the scientific community, but never used in an agriculture application.
Got it. Tell me, I mean, I always remember adverts growing up about phytosterols and things like cholesterol, I think human cholesterol. What actually is phytosterol?
So phytosterols are molecules that are extracted from the plant. They are in the plant cells membranes, and they are well known to adjust the physiology of the plants to better resist to stresses, different stresses. So what we did, because we improved the product with the formulation, with the composition too, we pick and choose the right phytosterols in order to have great results on water stress for corn and corn or maize and soybean, which are two of the largest crop in the world, very well affected by hydric stress in Brazil, but also in North America or in Europe. So this is the way we build this product.
Got it. Fantastic. Tell me, with water stress, where is it more prevalent? Is it more in Brazil, in the certain areas in the US or Europe? And how is weather changing from a viewpoint of what farmers can do with this crop?
So I would say that the weather is changing everywhere. And both Brazil and USA are very big countries, but particularly Brazil. So in Brazil, moreover, you have 2 seasons. So there is in Mato Grosso, for instance, you have saffron and safrina. It's not the same crop. So we are not saying that we are the miracle products working every time. For instance, last year in Brazil, the saffron season was extremely humid in Mato Grosso, like every single day with rain. But in Rio Grande do Sul, in the south of the country, it was extremely dry. So in the same country, same season, same crops, 2 different situations. So what we try to do is to identify the crops and the region where we want to promote our products. So, for instance, we will promote our corn products in Mato Grosso, but in the safrina season, which is more dry than the Safra. And we will continue the trials in the Safra season in the same Mato Grosso state for the soybean in order to adjust and to figure out if we can bring something to this crop in that region. In Rio Grande do Sul, which is another territory, we will also adjust accordingly to local weather conditions. In US, in the Corn Belt, it's a little bit more homogeneous, and we have currently about 50 trials in both soybean and corn.
Got it. Okay, so it's a real international. Your product has a real efficacy internationally. Across all the world's major crops. It sounds like.
Yeah. It's this is something that we started to figure out last year, that the product is really working well in all locations, because we also did some trials last year in Ukraine with great results and very consistent results. It's quite amazing, because with different plants, for instance, in Brazil, it's GMO plants. We have roughly the same results in yield gain with similar water stress condition than in France and than in Ukraine. So our product is really working the same way, which is mostly for the corn, closing partially the stomata of the leaves, which decrease the transpiration of the plant, which saves water, less water consumption. So we measure as an average the water consumption decreased by 20%.
Is it really 20%? Wow. 20%.
So that means the result of this, and obviously it depends strongly on one end on the rainfall, on the other end on the soil, which is very important for water stress. But roughly translate from 5 to 10% yield gain up to 25-30% yield gain, depending on one end of the soil and also on the rainfalls.
Got it. Okay, that's great. Very interesting. And tell me though, when you're making the molecule and you need to scale up and build more volume, as it were, are you using like biotechnology to make it or how do you scale the phytosterol? How are you able to manufacture huge quantities of it?
Yeah, so what is good is phytosterol is the plant extract, and it's a kind of waste of plants. So it's like a circular economy, if you want. But that being said, it's a complex situation in order to do the right formulation based on different balance of phytosterols. So right now we are still in the early stages of the extraction of phytosterols, but it's coming from plants, and we try to extract the right phytosterols from the right plants in order to do the right formulation for other plants. So it's a little bit complex, a little bit like the cognac, if you want. You blend different harvests in order to have the best product. So this is the plan that we have to do with the phytosterols in order to increase the efficacy of our product.
Yeah, that's
for,
great. And
for new crops, for new crops.
for new crops, yeah, absolutely. So you've got products at the moment that you're selling in France, yeah, and it's mainly
Yeah.
for what crop was it?
So we get a marketing authorization mid of last year in France for corn and soybean. So we started to sell the product at the beginning of this season. So the product has been sprayed last month and early this month, and it went very well, as we already have 20 cooperatives as customers. Most of them are quite large cooperatives. Obviously, it's the first year, so it's still even if we sell the product, it's still trials for the farmers. But I think we are very pleased with the adoption of this innovation. And by the way, we have a lot of traction everywhere we go. If, for instance, in Ukraine, and even with the war, we have about 50 large agro holdings testing our product. And in Brazil, we did a trip in March, and engaged with different cooperative dealership, very large agro holdings. Always the same feedback. The water stress for crops is a main pain. We need to find a great product. And all these companies, even in Brazil, they want to have sustainable solution. It's interesting. They want to, merge the yield gains with sustainability. It's key. So a lot of traction. Hopefully, we will launch the product next year in Brazil. If the war stops in Ukraine, we'll do the same. And in Ukraine, we also have a marketing authorization for sunflower, because we get the marketing authorization in Ukraine for corn, soybean, and sunflower during the war. It was very a surprise, but the Ukrainian people are very resilient, and they decided to move forward with our dossier, and it has been approved during the war, and
Wow.
we shipped 5,000 liters, which has been sprayed in Ukraine.
Incredible. Absolutely. So tell me about the big dream then, like where you are now, because, as a company, it's very exciting times. I know you closed a Series A round, I think, about 6 months ago, a year ago.
Yeah, six months ago. Yeah.
So where is the JF vision? Where is Elicit Plant in 5 years' time?
Yeah. So from coming from the Silicon Valley view, we want to be the worldwide champion of the phytosterols. We want to be recognized as the worldwide leader of phytosterols for agriculture application. So right now we are really the pioneer. We are the first one, and we are developing patents, but also great products. And the idea in 5 years is potentially to do like between 5 to 10 million of hectares treated at a worldwide level, with different areas beyond the Brazil or the South America, because the big market in Argentina, in Paraguay, North America, in Canada too. You have some hydric stress condition, could be good for us too. And in Europe, Western Europe, and also the Black Sea Basin with Ukraine and other countries nearby. This is the vision, to be with a global footprint and a global leader recognized on our science and on our premium products.
Wonderful. It's very exciting journey, JF. Thank you for outlining that. Tell me just a couple, just last few points. Joining the world of agriculture. You're talking here about. I was just giving some thought. You're talking here about deeply technical plant physiology and chemical interactions, and you come from cybersecurity, right? What have you found the biggest challenges or the biggest obstacles you personally have had to overcome as a as a founder, CEO of an agriculture company or an AgTech company?
Yeah, yeah. Interestingly, I think these challenges to not know the core of the business, I think helped me to be a better CEO, because I'm forced to be to step back a little bit. I cannot be hands-on because I don't know enough on the science part. So I think first of all, I had to learn. I have to work in order to understand exactly how does it works. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. I feel comfortable with the technology, with the understanding of the key components. And by the way, we are working on limited crops, so it helps to acquire the knowledge for these crops. If you talk to me about rapeseed, for instance, I will know nothing. But for corn or soybean, I will have the good things. So, and that being said, what is interesting too is that I found a lot of similarity when you want to develop a global company based on technology. This is the same pillars that you have to build in order to be strong, in order to be successful, in order to establish your company at a worldwide level. So even you don't know the details of the pillars, I think you know what you have to accomplish. So for instance, on the IP, and with the IP, you learn a lot about the technology because you have to deep dive. You are challenged by your partners. So yeah, we develop the IP, we develop the science. What is very specific for AgTech that we don't have in the cybersecurity, the marketing authorization, which is quite complex too, and varied sometimes local regulations, and then the go-to-market, which is kind of comparable too. So a lot of similarity, a lot to learn, but a very pleasant journey to this learning lesson.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. And just final one, just to pick up on a couple of things that you've said, right? Specifically around resilience. And I'm curious, where do you learn? Is resilience something that can be learned? Can it be something that's developed? It sounds like you learn yourself in those situations where there's tension or adversity, as it were. And is this a learned thing? How do you get there?
Yes, no. I think on one hand, it's your personality. So I'm a very competitive guy. So when I have to face these obstacles, this adversity, I see that as a challenge. So then I go in that direction, and also it's also the learning is about to be patient. Be patient. I think it's key, and fight again. And at one point it will go through. It's what I learned. Not rush too fast in a decision, and I'm not a passion guy, but in that situation you have to be patient in order to make the right decision.
Yeah, that's great. That's great context. And look, JF, I could talk with you all day about this, but I know you have other things to do. But listen, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing. And just wanted to wish you and Elicit Plant all the very, very best for your future growth.
Thank you, Simon. Simon, great question. Appreciate it, and great show. Thank you, Simon.
Pleasure.